Welcome back to Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS. Clarity, understanding, and empathy. Common values for those on the front lines charting a bold way forward for African Americans in St. Louis. Stay tuned as we talk to these changemakers, visionaries, and overcomers. I'll ask the questions you want to hear and get the clarity we all need about the issues we face. That's next on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS. Coming up next on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, it's the journey of many entrepreneurs leave corporate America for an idea that feeds your soul. One difference for Rachel Burns, though, was that the idea is now feeding others. As the owner of Bold Spoon Creamery, Rachel describes just how the premium small batch ice cream business moved from her backyard to a farm, and how the business survived despite starting during the global pandemic. That's next on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough.
Welcome back to this next episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, Season 2. Just a reminder and homework already before we even get into our incredible guest today. Homework that you like the podcast and that you share the podcast. You can even download the podcast and watch it later, but we do want you to become a subscriber as well. I learned recently that some of you are watching us, but you're not becoming subscribers. And some of you are subscribers, but you're not sharing. So everybody, what's the name of that movie? All at Once, Everything All at Once. I'm going to need you to do everything all at once. To like, to share, to download, to subscribe, and to comment. You can handle that. These are great conversations, Rachel Burns. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And that is very reasonable homework.
Yes.
Very reasonable.
It's not hard to just click the like button.
Agreed.
To download and then to share it. I always tell the story of a couple in my church, and I don't think I've said they were from my church, but he'll see something and then he'll share it with her. Have you seen this yet? Or she'll see something, she'll see a podcast and she'll share it with him. So, and they live in the same home and they're sharing with one another because that's how marriages last.
Agreed.
Reasonable homework. Rachel Burns said it from Bold Spoon Creamery.
Yes.
It all began, Rachel, with an abundance of mint.
Indeed. Yes. So we used to live in University City, and I planted mint in my garden instead of unrestrained in a pot as a reasonable person would. And we just had it abundantly. I mean, we stopped watering, it didn't matter. We gave it away, it grew more. Like there was nothing to do to lessen it. And so it just occurred to me that I liked mint ice cream. And so I just started making mint ice cream, really just as a way to use it up. And then, people would come over in the summer. I'd make mint ice cream. It became like a condition of accepting my invitation to come to my house. Yeah. And so that was 2017. And it's funny because I had, in our basement, like many people probably do, like a little Cuisinart ice cream machine.
Right.
Ours hadn't been off the shelf in years and years and years. I can't even remember. I almost, I forgot I had it. And then I started making mint ice cream. And then it became a hobby that I was branching out to making other flavors. And then it became an obsession to the point where I told my husband, this is outrageous how much time I'm spending on this hobby.
Right.
I need to make it a business. And so now it's so funny when I think about the information that I brought forward to him on my business plan was ridiculous, but
Was it even in writing at that time? Did you?
I mean, it was no, which clearly is also ridiculous. I mean, it was more of a vague direction of not vague, but this is the direction of travel, right? But not super baked.
And what was his reaction?
Well, he said, okay. And
because a good husband would.
A good husband
say
would.
Okay.
But now, a lot of times when people, want to talk about Bold Spoon, they talk to me. But it really is very much a joint effort. I mean, there is no Bold Spoon without him or me. And he spends just as much time as I do on the business as well. So we're both full-time dedicated to it. But, like we've grown and learned along the way. But that I always laugh kind of, I did keep my first business plan. It's like, and we don't have Bold Spoon archives, but if we did, it would be like in there. Just like, it's just kind of funny to look at. But then in 2019, we started our business. Got it, all the legal registrations and so
Right.
forth. And then when we had everything in place, it was March of 2020.
Pandemic.
Yeah, and my business plan was to primarily sell wholesale to restaurants. I mean, that part I had worked
Which is a
out.
good business plan to have.
It
That would have
was.
worked.
It would have worked. But then, it's like if they're struggling to keep open, I'm not going to go to them and say, hey, would you like to carry my new fancy ice cream? As you're like wondering how you're going to pay your bills, right?
Right.
So I pivoted. But it's funny because, a lot of times when people talk about pivoting, like people are aware that you've pivoted, right? Like no one was aware that I pivoted because it was just the beginning.
It was.
But so this is what I did. My son, he was a college senior, so he was sent home like they all were during COVID. And so he made our website such that you could order online. So I wanted to just get this thing going. So I went to our commercial kitchen. We rented St. Louis Food Works is where we started. So I went there. We made a batch of ice cream. I got dry ice and a wagon. And I made
like a little red wagon.
It was blue, but that's the idea. That's the idea. Just like a little covered wagon. And I made little cards, and I went around my neighborhood. I mean, in U City, and I knock on the door. What was so funny? Like, remember in the beginning of COVID, you didn't know, could you be 6 feet, 10 feet? Like, do you have to jump in a vat of bleach? Like, what are we doing? Like, I didn't know what.
Were you washing your groceries? All of that, right?
Yeah,
all of that. And you're knocking on
exactly.
doors.
Yeah, so this is what would happen. So I was like, I just want to get this thing started because I knew like making a change, because clearly at that point restaurants weren't going to work. I also had a little dose of impatience and wanted to just get it going. And so we went to the commercial kitchen, made the ice cream. I put it in this wagon with dry ice, and I would go around my neighborhood. I'd knock on, so I would place a little ice cream on the step. I'd knock on the door and then run back to the street because I was like, I don't know how close I could be. I don't
Six
know.
or 10.
But I would say, hi, my name's Rachel. I live down the street. I just started this business. Wanted to share this ice cream with you. If you really love it, you could order it online.
So you were giving it away from the little red wagon, little blue wagon.
Giving it away because I was like, I just have got to get this going.
wow.
And there weren't any other mechanisms for me to share it with people.
Right.
Right. Like now, it's in grocery stores now, so we could do samplings and things like that.
But how soon after you were giving away samples did the first order come in?
That day. Yes. But it's funny because, and it was hilarious because our son was home from college and the first order was $40. We were jumping up and down. I mean, clearly 40 is not life-changing.
But it was.
But it was.
But it was.
It was.
You went from 0 to 40
Yeah.
in a day.
Right.
Okay.
But that was just like enough proof. And I'm like, maybe. And it was that. It was just like enough proof that, maybe this could work. So I just literally went around my entire neighborhood and did that. And then we got orders, we delivered them on Saturday. And then the next week, more. So it was like reorders from them, and then they told friends. And then like the third week, more. And then we, have you been to Tower Grove Farmers Market much? Do you love it?
Oh, who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? It's an experience.
It is. It really is. And so that we started selling it at Tower Grove like July of 2020 because they had a delayed opening, just trying to figure out
Like
how to
everybody did,
traverse.
right? Yeah.
And so from there, we started with grocery stores. So Smokehouse Market in Chesterfield was our first, and still is a current client of ours. And then Snooks came along, and then Straub's came along. And then in 2022, late 2022, we were invited to be in City Park, the city flavor.
Which is how I met you. Originally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now we have Bold Spoon branded stands at City Park and Energizer Park. I have to say the right thing.
I didn't correct you. They changed the name.
Energizer
Yes.
Park.
Yes.
Enterprise Center and the Dome. And universities and things of those sorts.
Well, we have to back up just a little bit to who you were when you planted that mint.
Yes.
What you were doing for a living at the time.
Not this. So what I was doing for a living at the time, I was a corporate investment consultant. So what that means is that I would help like large publicly traded companies with the investment strategies for their 401k plans and their pension plans.
And wait a minute, let me read. Hold on. There are numbers to read here. She's going to put her glasses on. So I can get it.
Not the glasses.
I don't think it's not an M, it's a B. That's why I want to get the number right.
Yeah.
You are managing client relationships that represented $18 billion in assets.
That is true.
With a B as in boy. That's why I want to have the glasses on.
Being as Bold Spoon.
Come on, Rachel. B as in Bold Spoon.
Yes.
So this is what you were doing.
Correct. And I actually loved it too.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, and
you were good at it apparently, because you don't give somebody rule over $18 billion in assets unless they are good at it.
Right. Yeah, that is, it was a hard thing to leave. And I think every entrepreneur that leaves their day job to pursue their business full time, I mean, it's always a struggle, right?
It's a risk.
It's a huge risk.
Yes.
And it's like, I had a great job, compensation was nice. But then it was like, what if I don't see this thing out? It would just... So actually, I did both for a period of time. So Bold Spoon, kind of became, like I said, our first order ever. The $40 was May 2nd of 2020.
I love it that you know the date.
I know.
I love that.
Yes. And, we had kind of steady, good growth. And then in 2023, I was like, I think we could really do something here. But, it's the challenge that all entrepreneurs have when they have their day job and they have their business. It's like you're just so pulled in so many directions.
Right. And what do you do?
Yeah, it's hard to...
Do you leave the comfort and security of the
Yes.
day job for the dream?
Yes. And that is a very tough question. But I went, my day job, I started working part-time in April of 2023. And then my final day was December 1st of 2023.
I want to go back, too, because when you were making the mint ice cream and friends and family are coming over to taste it, what are they telling you about it that made you, at a point, think this should be a business?
Right. Well, the making it a condition upon seeing us was like part of it.
You can't come to my house unless you eat my mint ice cream?
Yeah, well, they would be like, I would say, could you come over? They're like, well, are you going to make mint ice cream?
They made it a condition. It was their condition.
It was their condition, not my condition. Yeah, it was their condition. So that was part of it.
And can we just stop and say, because I told her I was going to bring this up, there are people in the room with us who are the team, the crew are here in the room with us. And I think they all expected ice cream. And it's my fault that she didn't bring it, you guys. I want to blame myself. It's my fault. Look, my producer's nodding. Yes, it's your fault, Carol. I should have told her to bring ice cream. I assumed. You should never assume.
Well,
and so we wanted to. That should have been a condition.
Yes,
but
it
I
should
didn't.
have been.
I did not make it a condition. So
and
you have
in my defense, if I could defend myself,
you can, and you can.
Okay. Well, I left extraordinarily early today. There was a long gap of time between when I left my facility and here.
And there was no wagon and no dry ice.
Yeah, there literally is no dry ice where we are in our whole county. That doesn't happen till we get to St. Louis County, which I'll tell you about where we
are going to.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that for sure.
But know that I will correct that, and I had intended to do that.
Well, God bless you. Because
my pleasure.
Last night I was with friends, and we were scrolling through your flavors, and she landed on the fig and goat cheese.
Ah, that's a good one to land on.
That's a good one to land on. Half of the room was like, ooh, fig. And the other half of the room was like, ooh, I'll eat anything with goat cheese in it.
I love it.
So we want to talk about how you come up with these flavors, but how crowded is the ice cream market?
I think there's a lot of players. I guess I'm always of the, I don't know, my stance is like there's room for everyone, right? Like for Bold Spoon to be successful, I don't need for anyone else to fail. And vice versa.
Oh, that's an interesting point of view.
Yeah, I just think there's room for
There's
everybody.
space for you.
There's space, and there's space for them.
And you said fancy earlier, but it is artisanal ice cream. What does that mean?
Well, to me, that means a couple things. It means our flavors are more adult-oriented flavors. So that doesn't mean that they include booze by any means.
Right.
But, like an adult-oriented flavor of ours, as an example, would be like a brown butter miso.
That was another one
Yes.
that the room was screaming
Right.
over.
Or
Yes.
conversely, like a kid-oriented flavor might be like, which we don't have, but I'm just to set, like a Cookie Monster, right? Like it's neon
Right,
blue.
right.
Like we don't do those. And there's nothing wrong with that, but someone else could have that space. And then we're kind of in our space. But what really, if someone was going to say, what is your point of differentiation? I would say a couple things like the adult-focused flavors. We don't use artificial coloring or flavor. And it is a farm-to-bowl brand, meaning like we actually do make it on my farm,
Right.
which is actually named Bold Spoon Creamery and Farm. But the fruits and herbs that are within it, if we don't grow them on our land ourselves, we get them from other local farmers.
2 questions. Why Bold Spoon? Talk to me about the name.
Oh, so when we graduated to the point that we decided to make it a business, I would invite our friends over. We had a group of 6 friends that would come over for ice cream tastings. Okay, so I would put ice cream out. I didn't tell them what it was. And they would have, I was so rigid. I can't believe they would even come over. I would have surveys that they had to fill out.
Wow.
Like,
Okay.
what's the forward flavor? What's the background flavor? What is it, like the texture? What would you like more of? What would you like less of?
And are you doing that because you're leaning to it becoming a business at that time?
So
okay.
it was at that time, I was like, pretty sure it was going to be a business.
Okay.
And I just wanted to like hone in the flavors a
Got
bit
it.
more.
But they came.
And so it was funny. So I would set out the ice cream. They would have to use like different bowls and different spoons for each one because there could be
Wow.
no cross. They would have to, in silence, fill out the survey because I didn't want anyone like
Influencing anyone else.
Correct.
Okay, so they couldn't say or
nothing, just silent. Eat it.
Wow. Okay.
I know. But then, so it was so funny. So then after each one, then we would like talk about it. And then, so we had like a couple iterations of that. And no one could remember who, but someone nicknamed the group the Spoons because that's what that was their instrument, the Spoons.
Yes.
And then my friend Krista said, we should make the spoons a thing and farm ourselves out to other companies that have soft food that you eat with a spoon. So they were going to reach out to applesauce companies, gravy companies.
They were making themselves a taste group.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, called the Spoons. Okay.
So that's how that part came in. And then they said, your flavors are so bold, I love them.
And there it is.
And there it is. So it was just that easy.
When do you, because I know so many people from University City who live there now or who graduated from high school from U City and have a love affair with University City. When did you decide to leave and move to a farm, and why?
Yeah.
And was that hard? That's too many questions. I'm sorry.
No, I could break it down. So I loved U City and still do love it. I loved it because you could be anywhere, like in a flash. I mean, that was really great. The neighborhood was really diverse. I could walk to Clayton and use participate in the restaurants, but not pay to live there, frankly.
I get it. Oh, I get it.
That is something. So I really did love it for a lot of reasons. At the time, my job, I would walk to work because it was just I worked in downtown Clayton, so it was just a, mile walk. So my husband grew up in a rural area. Like that is and so did his parents, and so on and so forth. Like, that is where he came from. And so he always wanted to return to that type of setting. And, you know, for a number of reasons, maybe some valid, maybe some not, it didn't really make sense to do that until it made sense to do that. And so when it did make sense is shortly after we started Bold Spoon, we outgrew I said we were making it at St. Louis Food Works.
Right, the commercial
which is
kitchen
a shared
space.
commercial kitchen, which is a phenomenal way for businesses to begin, just because it's a lower risk way for a business, because you just pay for the time that you need. I'm not like beholden to this multi-year long.
Right. You're not paying the full rent either.
Exactly.
Right.
But we outgrew that because we needed people to join us to help us make it. You know, the equipment was big and we needed to like have it in place. And so we were kind of looking around like, well, maybe we could find somewhere here to buy. But then also just the whole focus on our farm to bowl brand, it became very apparent that like that's what we needed to do. So my husband, you know, the kind of parameters we had is that it needed to be an hour-ish from St. Louis. One, because my dad, I mean, he's since passed, but he was here, so I needed to be able to see him a couple times a week. But also, our business is here, right? Like, our production is there, but our business happens here.
Right.
So we needed to be close for that reason. You know, I also needed it to be in Missouri, just because our business was registered there. I didn't want the hassle of doing
In
another
another state. Yeah.
And the farm needed to have a building that could be easily, maybe not like turnkey, but easily converted into our commercial kitchen. And so he found all of those things, and then we went, which I'm glad, because now it's like our stake is in the ground. Like, this is a farm to bowl brand, and it just helps me like really stay in my lane.
And so you knew then, I'm going to grow these ingredients.
That was the plan.
Are you a farmer? Were you a...
Well, this is funny.
He grew up in rural Missouri, Missouri?
Yeah. Well, no, Illinois.
Rural Illinois.
Yeah.
But you did or did not.
Yeah. So my husband always laughs because he's like, "Oh, your shoes aren't really dirty." Like,
But my shoes got to be dirty.
right? I know. So he always says like, I have like the high level ideas, and then he figures out how to execute.
And that's all right.
Yeah, but I do like doing it. I just like that wasn't my history. You know, like I am a city girl. I grew up at the Central West End. Like my grandparents had a farm, but I was just a kid. I mean, that's a different thing. But no, he very much, I mean, I do know how to drive the tractor. Not confidently and not fast, but I do know how. But anyway, he loves it. And that's like his happy place.
Yeah, but you didn't have a second thought about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like it just became obviously
that
the
you
choice.
needed.
Yeah.
Right. If you were going to do this in an artisanal way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just became obvious. Just like I was saying before, like the time to quit my job, you know, it should have been probably 6 months earlier than I did. But when I did, it was like so obviously the right thing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't scary, really.
Do you remember the question I asked you when I found out you had a farm? I think this was via email. I don't know if we were texting or emailing back and forth, but my immediate question was, are you having dinners at the farm?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
your
that
question.
was-
Yeah. Well, we actually have done that once before, and that is something that we would be open to doing again. It was really fun. I
would
loved it.
imagine.
Yeah, we had it was for shrimp. It was a crawfish boil, shrimp and crawfish boil. We had another group come in and do it. It was great. We had about 90 people. The biggest event we've had at our farm is we do what we call farm open houses. We do them twice a year, once in July, once in October. We try to align the early one with like when sunflowers and wildflowers are in bloom.
Oh, wonderful.
But the biggest one we had was for the eclipse because we were in the path.
Right.
Yeah, we had about 400 people
Oh,
there.
my gosh.
Yeah.
How many acres is the farm?
57.
Okay. Was that within... Did you give him that parameter to find a farm?
Well, it's funny because initially when we were looking, we were thinking, 10 to 15. I mean, because we can't, our yard in the past was like measured in just a few feet. It was really
Right.
tiny. No, but we were thinking more in that. And this is just what became available.
Right,
And
right.
it fit everything. And it was more than we kind of wanted. But now I'm like, I want more. It's like so ridiculous. Like once you get a little land, it's like, I want everything I see to be mine. It's like, it doesn't need to be
we
the
are
case.
we are in that similar thing because we have bought property, and my husband's like, he wants the house across the street, he wants the house behind the property, he wants the
Yes.
house next to the property, and he wants the property behind the house because there's a road. And we could just drive straight from our property
Of course.
to his mother's property if we.
Oh.
Yeah. So right. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
My question is, which is your husband's question, is where's this money coming from?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So are you growing? I mean, you have goats? Do you have animals?
no, so-
because where's the goat cheese coming from?
Yeah.
I'm determined to get this fig and goat cheese ice cream, y'all.
yeah. Well, that we get from a local provider. But the animals, so we have chickens, but that's a separate matter. But what we do is the fruits and herbs. So we have like an acre of pumpkins for our pumpkin chai ice cream. We have several hundred feet of berries, strawberries, and raspberries for our fruit flavors. We have a bed of mint that's like as big as this room for our mint ice cream. We have sweet corn. We have a sweet corn ice cream. So it's those things. And it really is so great to be able to, pick a pumpkin, roast it, and then make pumpkin chai ice cream
Wow.
the next day. Like the flavor difference is
Is amazing.
massive.
Are the spoons still involved in the tasting?
Well, the spoons have moved. We dispersed, but we still ate ice cream when we come together.
Did you have any doubts along this way? Have you had any doubts? I mean, I understand starting in March of 2020 and the pandemic happens, you have to pivot, but that the pivot comes out of a determination. Like, I can't do this, so I now have to do this.
Yeah. I wouldn't say. So I think every phase kind of comes with new challenges.
Yeah.
Which challenge isn't a bad word, because if you figure it out, then you're kind of better
Absolutely.
off.
Absolutely.
But I think as we kind of scale and grow, then we discover, oh, now we need to worry about this thing. And, scaling and growing does require capital, right? So it's like that is kind of a piece of it. But I think what has helped me, to be honest, even though my past life, what I did for a living, didn't directly, or indirectly, have anything to do with ice cream making, it had everything to do with growing a business and understanding the
right.
numbers. So it's like I use that past piece of me every day in my current life.
And that makes all the difference in the world. You are not someone who's come to business without a business sense.
Yeah. And that is a thing I think a lot of small businesses just struggle with generally, is they're fabulous at whatever the craft or discipline they have. But, they might struggle a little bit with the business. I mean, luckily there are a lot of programs in place, which I'm happy to touch on, to help solve for that.
How far in advance do you say, I'm going to plant this and it becomes a flavor?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to partner with this farmer, this business, and it becomes a flavor?
Yeah. Well, we have kind of this ones that we have established over the season, but sometimes, like last year, my husband will say, I think let's plant some sweet corn and see what we can do with it. So, sometimes we'll just plant that was a massive amount that he planted, by the way. But sometimes we might just do a little bit and just test it and see. So we're always trying to, not reinvent the wheel, but just try a different approach. Like last year, we planted some purple basil, which was great. And
I didn't even know purple basil existed.
we have purple, and I'm sure it has obviously a more defined name than purple basil, but we did this basil and strawberry ice cream, which was really great. So that's the great thing about just having the farm there.
Right.
It's not hard to source it because it's
right there.
Right there. Yeah.
And is your son looking to become a part of the operation, or is he saying, no, I'm going to play the cello?
Well, he's not playing the cello. So he's 27 now and lives in San Francisco. and he works in finance in the tech sector. So we laugh like he is our eternal pro bono IT guy.
I have one of those.
Yeah. Has yours ever declined a request?
No, but because he lives in Chicago, he's like, I'm not there.
Yeah.
I've given, somehow they can like take over your computer.
Oh, yeah.
So we've done that, but
Yeah.
if he doesn't have time, the answer is no. He's not declined the request, but it
Yeah.
might be a matter of time. Like, Mom, I have 6 meetings today, I can't, or I'll do that when I come see you. So that's what happens.
Yeah. What happened to me once, he's never declined, but he did ask me once if I tried troubleshooting first. And
I've been asked that.
And I said, no, I did not.
Yeah, I called you because
Yeah, right,
I
this
gave
is it.
birth to a troubleshooter. So
Yeah.
how about that?
Right, exactly. Agreed.
What is next? Is it in terms of flavor or buying all the land around you? What is next for
Yeah,
Gold
well, I
Spoon?
would like to buy all the land around us, but that just like you were describing
Yeah.
what your husband like
Yeah.
that's not really necessary, and neither is it for me or us. But yeah, I think for us, it's I have some new partnerships coming up that I'm excited about. I can't share just yet, but we'll be able
Darn.
to. I know.
Okay.
Well, maybe by the time that
That we actually have your ice cream? You'll
yeah,
be able
which
to
it
tell
won't be
us?
that long, but yeah. So I think for us, it's to make, get a couple more kind of large partnerships in this area, but then to expand regionally first through grocery stores.
Is
and
there an
then
ice
beyond?
I think everybody, well, not everybody, but some watching would be wondering, where is the ice cream shop?
Yep. Well, so it's funny. A lot of people ask that, and we don't have what you would consider like an ice cream shop. So we make it on my farm in our production kitchen. And, we have, so that's open twice a year, right? That's like not a shop, but you could come through the farm open houses. But the main channel is to go to Snooks, go to Straub's, go to Smokehouse Market, Fresh Time. Like those are kind of the stores that it's always available. But if you're a sports fan, you could see us at, the Dome and Energizer Park, Enterprise Center. Lots and lots
So
of places, but
my question was, where is the ice cream shop? And we have to go to these places to get your ice cream.
that's correct. Yeah, we don't have a scoop shop, and that is intentional. I mean, as I said early on, like there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
There are people that have scoop shops and are incredibly successful, and that's like the path they wanted to take, right? So, like that's just not a path I wanted to take, and I think it's because in a way, like my old life, when my working was with large institutions.
Right.
Like that's like the world I know. So that's kind of what I overlaid in terms of our business strategy as well. So that's for us, that's what works. For other people, other approaches work. But I think the main thing is just like knowing kind of, what you'll need at the next step. For me, I've been very lucky to be part of Arch Grants.
Oh, right.
Yeah, this year is the 2024 cohort, which is great. I also went through like the UMSL Anchor Accelerator and am now on the board of that accelerator just to help other small businesses kind of traverse the scale path. Because I've been the benefactor of a lot of people willing to, for whatever reason, invest a lot of time and effort into me, and I want to give that back. Because I think it always needs to be a two-way street. It can't just be
Is you taking
helping me.
from,
I mean, that's
yeah, right,
outrageous.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So, through the UMSL Anchor Accelerator, it's been great. I also have worked a little bit with Snooks, too, for the same reason. Like, they were our first like big multi-store client. So I need to give something back. So they have this great springboard accelerator for early stage food companies that are interested in learning more about CPG. So I
Which
work with
is
them in that consumer packaged goods.
package, okay.
Yeah, I shouldn't use acronyms and say.
That's okay. No,
But
no.
yeah, that's what that is. So, I think having your own business, some days I'm like, what the heck? Why
was
did
I
I
thinking?
do this?
What was I thinking?
Yeah. But I think you're always going to think that. But I I don't know. It's just like the path to scaling. There's a lot to be concerned about.
And that is the thing I think that I have heard from other entrepreneurs and those who are in the educational space for entrepreneurship. Is the being able to have a side hustle, which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But how do you then scale whatever it is? That is the hardest part.
That is. And I'll say what I've kind of learned in this journey is there are so many free resources. It's unbelievable. Like, for instance, I didn't know this until recently, but St. Louis Public Library has business librarians. And you could go to them and they could help you get data about your target market, about competition already in that market for free.
St. Louis or St. Louis County?
No, both.
Both do.
Yeah,
Both do.
Both. And if your branch doesn't, they could certainly tell you which branch
where to go.
does. Yeah, because I was actually part of a panel discussion recently where it was me and another entrepreneur talking with business owners that just signed up for this program to talk about what it takes to start and scale a business. So, that's one free resource. There's also score.org, which if, I think anything an entrepreneur should do is like really take a self-assessment of like, what are you good at and what do you need to get better at? And the things you need to get better at, solve for a way to do that. So to me, Score would be a good way. And there you just put, like you say, this is what I need to work on. And then you get matched with a mentor that has expertise in that arena.
That is awesome.
It's free, yes. And the SBA is happy to work with you.
And they are all over.
All over. If you have a food business, Missouri Extension, which is with University of Missouri, they could help you with things like, food testing. They could help you set up a food safety program. So, that's the thing that I've learned in this journey. There are so many like wraparound resources that you just don't know about. Like I certainly didn't know.
And why did you decide that this isn't something I'm going to keep to myself, but then you not only become a part of the training for yourself, but then now you're on this board and you're on this panel and you're giving back.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is what I said before. Like for me to be successful, no one else needs to fail. Like if the tide is up, then we're all kind of going
all up.
And I think it's just really important to share what you learned with someone else, and then they pass it on and pass it on. Because a lot of times when I tell people this, they said, "Oh, I had no idea that I could get a mentor." Like you might think a mentor is something you could just get if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone. And that is a way, for sure, but that's not the only way. Yeah, there are a lot of ways. I guess one thing that I see entrepreneurs struggle with some, which is something I care deeply about, is just financial literacy.
For sure.
Like understanding when you get your financial statements, what does it mean? Right? Like, so I could, have helped people with that before. Like, you have to understand, like, how much does it cost you to make this? Like, what are your margins? What's the difference between gross margin and net margin? Like, why do you need to care? Like, all of those things matter so much, which if you don't understand that, the path to getting capital is going to be
that much more difficult.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, very much so. So I don't know. It's just things that I care a lot about. Like financial literacy, also personal financial literacy is something I care a lot about. In my old life, like before I even had a job, I really wanted to be a teacher, I think. So this kind of like helps
this
that.
This fits in with that.
Yeah.
Because now you are an instructor of others as well as being an inspiration.
Well, hopefully I'm an inspiration, but I at least try to help others for sure.
You are clearly an inspiration.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I said to people, she was in the I said the financial world.
Yeah,
that's asset
true.
management. That's true.
Yeah.
Asset management, grows mint, creates ice cream, buys a farm.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous.
Doesn't it sound ridiculously easy?
No, not easy. It just it sounds like who the heck would do that? That sounds like.
But I love the story.
A ridiculous.
It's
confluence
wonderful.
of events. Yeah.
It's just wonderful. And were you fearless? You think, or were you, as the name implies, you were bold?
Well,
you have to be bold.
Yeah, I think I was. But the thing So yes, and it's funny. My husband, like I said, he is as important to Bold Spoon as I am. But he would always say, like when I was grappling with quitting my job, he's like, "Just quit." I was like, "We can't just live on love. Like we need that isn't a thing." But I think what made it easier to do all of those things is that our son graduated college. He had a good job. He was completely self-supporting himself. So I'm like, if this goes south, we're only hurting ourselves. And the worst thing that will happen is that I'll just go back to my old life. Mm-hmm. Like, because I didn't hate it. I actually liked it. So when I quit, it wasn't like, oh, thank God I finished with that and now I'm on to this. So I think that was the main thing, is that the kid was like...
He was okay.
He thrived. Like,
he was good. He was good. If he had been a freshman in college.
Well, yeah, I'd be like, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, might have been a little...
pay your tuition. Yeah, that would have been a different thing. But he was done. There were no, thankfully, no real loans of any material amount, and he had a job. And so it's like, so we weren't making when we were thinking of who is this impacting, it was literally just the two of us.
Right.
And we knew if it didn't work, we would just
okay.
go back
You were okay.
Yeah, we were okay.
So the most difficult question you'll answer today is, what is your favorite flavor?
That's like, well, who is your favorite child?
Right. On Monday, it's one of them. I mean, it depends. There is an answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Today, right now, it's this one. Tomorrow, it's that one.
Yeah. Okay. So today it would be, keep in mind, like when we do our seasonal flavors, we only make what is in season when it's in season. That's why I don't have a strawberry flavor right now, because they're not in season. And that's why they are artisanal. Yeah. So I would say of the flavors we have today, it's like a three-way tie, but I'll just say that. So our vanilla creme brulee, it's a vanilla bean ice cream, and then to replicate the torched sugar on a creme brulee, we just heat sugar on the stovetop, pour it on parchment paper, and then it gets this beautiful amber like crunchiness, and then we just like nestle it in. So you just get... It's heaven.
You know all the words.
Yeah, so that would
Nestle is a great word.
Yeah. So that would be my one now.
Okay.
Garden mint, just because that was like, if there was no abundance of mint, there really wouldn't have been a Bold Spoon.
Yeah.
So that one is really close to my heart too. Yeah, there are a bunch. But yeah, if you were going to force
say thick goat cheese.
Well, I love that too. I don't know. I just love them all.
But you said there were, did you say three?
Yeah, so
was
the
that three?
Yeah, so that was one of them.
Garden mint.
And the salted chocolate, because I love like just a hint of salt with chocolate. But it's been a fun journey, and, it continues for sure. It's bumps along the way. But just the people that have helped me along the way, it's like unbelievable. Like really, if you ask for help, people generally say yes.
But that we could do a whole show on asking for help.
Yeah. It's not a weakness.
It is not a weakness, but it's very hard for people to do.
Yeah.
And I've had someone whom I love who said to me once, when I asked them, why don't you ask for help? They said, because you might say no. I'm like, well, okay, but I could say yes.
Yes.
I may say yes.
Exactly.
So ask for help, because you just might get a yes.
Right.
From the first time I met you, I was just fascinated by the story.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I mean, it is ice cream.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, it is. So it's delicious. Did I have
you.
it? I had it that day. I did
You
have it that day. And I was
in my defense, that day I came directly from the facility to there. I didn't
we're
have an
never
issue.
going to let her forget that she
know.
came here without ice cream.
But it's so funny because now when I come, if I have a meeting or a meeting a friend, they always... Like, I just have it in my pocket or something. Like, no, I don't have it with me. But
Rachel,
I do this.
Before we let you go, we are asking every guest of the podcast a similar question. The podcast, of course, is called Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. And the question that we are asking this season, season 2, is who should we be listening to? It's an esoteric, deep thought question. Who should we be listening to?
Yourself.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. When I said before, part of like business and life in general is just like really have an awareness of what your strengths are and awareness of where you could do a bit better. And I think once you have that, you kind of have done a lot of solving. Because once you identify what you need areas to get better, then you could find resources to kind of help.
To help you.
Yeah.
I
So I
like
don't
it.
know. I feel like yourself, because I feel like if you're not listening to yourself, you'll kind of fall for anything, maybe. I don't know.
I agree. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I
So what
agree.
are the range of answers that you've gotten?
We have heard each other,
Mm-hmm.
listen to each other, young people, listen to young people,
Well, that is, yeah, especially really, really young people. That's kind of fun.
like under 13, really.
Well, yeah, just like because there's no filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And take all that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I didn't say yourself to be like, oh, I know the most. That definitely isn't what I mean.
No, I
But,
heard what you said. That's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Because you are saying things to yourself,
Yeah.
for one.
Well, too, and it's like sometimes, like in my past, well, and current too, like if I'm stressing out, it's like I'm doing it to myself a little bit too, you know. But you're right, you are talking to yourself.
You're talking to yourself.
And just like when you were sharing that, you know, you asked someone why didn't you ask for help? It's like you might say no. Like that was an internal dialogue too.
It totally was, which is why you did not then ask the question, because you were having this conversation with yourself and you talked yourself out of.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too that's something to be aware of, just like in an entrepreneur journey, is like uninviting yourself to the party. Like for instance, Arch grants. I had the assumption, which was a wrong assumption, and I know on your podcast you also often say don't assume, but I assumed that it was more for tech companies.
And it is not.
Yeah. So 2023, you know, I didn't apply because I was like, well, this is just more for tech companies. But it isn't.
And you got it.
And I got it. Yeah.
Listen to yourself
Listen to yourself and don't assume.
and don't assume.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all of your
Well,
success.
thank you for having me. I loved this.
And I will be there on the farm
All right.
July and again in October because I'm excited.
Yes, we have
Yes.
live music, yard
Love it.
games. And before then, you'll get ice cream.
Congratulations.
Thank
really,
you.
congratulations
Thank
on
you.
all your success. And you can learn more about her by going to her website, which is
BoldSpoonCreamery.com.
very easy, very easy.
Easy, yeah.
Thank you for joining us
My
on the
pleasure.
podcast. It's been a joy having you.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this ever since I knew it was happening.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. We will be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. But what do? You like, you share, you download, you become a subscriber, and leave us some comments. We love to read your comments. Thank you again for joining us on this episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough.